Good morning. My name is David Plazas. I'm the Opinion and Engagement Director for the USA Today Network Tennessee and the Tennessean. Today, I have the honor of having a conversation with Acting Vice Mayor Sheri Weiner of Metro Nashville. She's been in this position since March, and she's up for election in the August 2nd special election. If voters and readers recall, because of the resignation of former Mayor Berry, Mayor David Briley, who was the former vice mayor, assumed that role, was elected in a special election, and Acting Mayor Weiner, who was a council person from Bellevue, was elected unanimously to the vice mayor pro tem, and then assumed the vice mayor position when David Briley became mayor. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So the first big question is, why do you want to do this?
You know, it's not so much why do I want to do it, but it's what I think I can bring to the position. And I think it makes sense for stability, continuity, and to capitalize on my business experience to be able to go in and take a deep dive and bring people together and find the fixes that we need to address.
So how does this differ from your role as council person? You've been on the council since 2011, if I remember correctly.
Right.
What are some of the biggest differences?
Some of the biggest differences are that when you're a district council person, you're addressing one specific area of the county. When you are acting as vice mayor, you are addressing more global issues. You're looking at how affordability and how budget and how transit affect every corner and every person here, and it's a big difference. And you're managing the influence of the opportunity that you have to work with everybody in the room to come to common sense decisions about how we move those things forward.
And you've had a couple big decisions here just in the short time that you've been vice mayor. Among them is the property tax decision. You were
Yes.
the tie-breaking vote in June to not go forward with the property tax increase. Would you describe for our viewers, why did you take that position?
Several reasons. The first reason, and the most important, is I was uncomfortable with the fact that we had not done a deep dive analysis of where we could cut the fat in spending. We had not looked at our efficiencies or inefficiencies and really identified how we can best serve the taxpayers and clean up our house before asking for more money. In light of the fact that, and I'd shared before, we have a 2% increase in average pay and an 8% increase in housing costs, and then we were going to add another tax increase on top of that in the midst of a property reassessment. That to me is unconscionable until we do a deep dive into how we're spending that money in the first place.
And to our viewers, if you have questions, just please let us know. Put them in the comments, and we'll be happy to ask them to Vice Mayor Weiner here. Let's talk a little bit about how we got here. We had a conversation with the editorial board before this broadcast, and I think both you and I have received calls of how is it that Nashville is prospering so much, and yet Metro government couldn't pay its raises to its public employees and was having trouble meeting its obligations.
I think it's a perfect storm is the best way to describe it. We had the tax appraisals and we had the appeals, and the certified tax rate was set too low to accommodate, or rather to account for those appeals. I think that we had the issue of some of these incentives coming due, a ballooning debt, because it's at a plateau, and I think all those things just came to the table all at once, and quite frankly, a lot of the people in the council were blindsided as well. We are operating on a budget system, budget process based on a 10-page budget, and it's 696 pages.
And what you mean is that the initial budget from Metro was 10 pages, and now today it's ballooned to that?
Back in 50 years ago, it was a 10-page budget. We operate under the same system as then.
Wow.
And so we have a 696-page budget, and that doesn't count the supplemental information. And we got the budget one day before we start our public hearings. And so it's just a system that we have to fix before we can really go to the community and say, okay, this is how much we're going to raise your taxes, and this is why. Or better yet, instead of informing the community what we're going to do, why don't we engage the community in what we can do? I think it makes more sense to do it the latter.
If I recall correctly, there's a line item in the new budget for a council financial person, financial
Yes.
analyst. Could you describe a little bit about what the expectation is for that person?
The expectation is for us to function as a true check and balance. Not that there's anything untoward going on or not, but we have to have the opportunity to have somebody on staff who can help us take that deep dive and look at the proposals, look at the budget, help us sort through it, because your council members are only part-time. And so there's limited amount of time that we have to go through that system. And to have a financial analyst who can help us take that second look makes the most sense, and that's why we moved in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And would you describe a little bit, in your view, what does the vice mayor do, and what should the vice mayor be doing? And in addition to that, what should the relationship be with the mayor?
So what the vice mayor is charged with is managing the meetings, appointing the committees, and appointing the committee chairs. Those are the three biggest things that go on. And that offers the opportunity to influence the direction that our conversations go, to the intensity of how the education committee, for example, wants to work with the school board and help shape the conversation of how we move forward with education and increasing literacy and increasing those TCAP scores. And so if you look at that, you can also look at the budget committee and how forceful is the budget committee going to be when it does its deep dive. I also have the opportunity as vice mayor to appoint special committees, and I just appointed the efficiency committee to start looking at those incentives and how the budget process works. And so you really have the opportunity to influence the direction that we go. It's important, though, that you maintain an open line of communication and engagement with the administration, and I've got a great relationship with Mayor Briley. And in fact, we just met again yesterday on how we're going to move forward with getting a lot of these things done. We are of like mind that we've got to get back to basics, and we've got to make sure our house is in order to manage the growth that we're experiencing right now and be respectful and responsible to the taxpayers.
When Mayor Briley gave his State of Metro speech, it was actually considered a pretty dark speech. You know, it was a belt tightening. He quoted his own grandfather, Mayor Beverly Briley, the first mayor of Metro Nashville. And what is your hope for what his message is come May 2019?
I hope he says that we have found a lot of the things that we can do to fix this moving forward, and that we can take the information that we've gleaned, because right now we're going for data, we're going for information, and that he'll be able to offer some really solid data-driven decisions so that we don't find ourselves in this position ever again. So we need to, you know, you've heard the expression, kick the can down the road. I would like to take the can and know that going down the road for our kids and our grandkids, we're not going to have to worry about hearing kick the can down the road, because we shouldn't do that.
And if we can go back for one moment, from your perspective, how did we get here?
The perfect storm. It's the perfect storm. We had the ballooning debt that we had to manage. We had because we're at that plateau, we had the issue of the appraisals. We had the issue of the process and the system not being appropriate for the size budget that we have to manage now. So I think it was a cumulative effect of everything all rolled into one. And it was time that we take the needle and we pop the balloon and we say we're going to go back to basics and figure this out.
And what has your life and professional community experiences, how has that informed the way that you are doing the job?
I have always been in the medical profession as an audiologist. I owned my own practices, and so you have to, when you're a practice owner, look at 4 primary areas of oversight: marketing, finance, metrics, and operations. And it's important that we use some of that lens when looking at issues that come before us. I've always been somebody that brings a staff together. I bring organizations together. I was president of the State Society, and you don't really get anything accomplished if you take a singular focus, and you need to be bringing in a body of people who have differing perspectives so that you can really get to the bottom of these issues and find the best path forward. So I'm a real believer in stakeholder groups, and I actually took that experience and applied it to General Hospital when I recommended the stakeholder group when we were trying to negotiate their supplemental. And we've brought people in from all over the healthcare industry here to help chart the course for the future of our really important safety net hospital.
So just to clarify, you're supportive of the continuation of the mission of Nashville General?
I am supportive of that safety net facility, and I want to ensure that we capitalize on the opportunity that we've got in this community to bring the best to everybody.
One of the criticisms of the former mayor is that after making that announcement of the closure of inpatient care, which didn't happen, that was delayed.
Right.
It was right after the soccer vote, the MLS soccer vote. Could you remind us what your position was on the MLS Stadium, and going forward, does anything need to change or be altered or be amended?
So a couple of things. Back then, I was okay with the initial vote. I supported the initial vote, knowing full well that we were going to get more information and that this was going to be a process that would expand over time with more information. At this point, I'm not sure we have enough information to make that decision, and we have requested more data from them. We need information about the scope of the project. We need information about the specifics insofar as the placement, parking. We need to make sure there's enough parking. And right now, we're not even sure there's enough parking. We need to look at the 10 acres and the structure of that lease. And is that appropriate given the landscape that we're in right now? So there's still a lot of questions to be answered before a firm decision is made.
I've received a lot of feedback from folks who are adamant about the fairgrounds and saving the fairgrounds, and obviously the voters voted overwhelmingly a few years ago to make sure that wasn't redeveloped.
Right.
And so this right now, some see it as an affront to what was decided by the voters.
As long as we work within the confines of the legislation that was passed by that referendum, then I think that we owe it to the fairground supporters, to the people that live in that community, to listen to what they have to say and make sure that the decision we make honors everybody.
On May 1st, we had the famous transit referendum, and Bellevue was one of the communities, one of the I think it was the 30 districts that voted against
Yes.
The transit referendum. Why do you think that was, and what is it that people from there and also from other parts of the county want in a transit system? Because what we heard from Nashville Next is that was a big priority.
Inclusion. That is the single best word to describe it, is inclusion. When we looked at the plan, for example, in Bellevue, everybody would walk up to me at the end of the meeting and they would say, "Where's Bellevue in this? Why are we going to pay more when we literally see no phase of this where we're touched?" And I think if you look at the map, because a friend of mine did a map that shows where the vote was, and in the core and the areas that were going to be directly impacted by the initial phases of the transit, they were for it. But the people that were in the outer communities were overwhelmingly opposed to it because inclusion. And what we need to do moving forward is, instead of it being more of a top-down conversation, we need to go out there and we need to listen. We need to, for example, talk to the companies where people are driving in, potentially here in downtown, in the Gulch, and we need to ask them not who your people are that work for you, but where do they live? Let's look at their zip codes, and let's see where people are coming from. Let's get information on traffic patterns based on some of the Uber and Lyft data that they can share with us. Let's take a data-driven approach and take it to the community and then say, how does this data impact you day in and day out? And what low-hanging fruit options, maybe something as simple as, and I'm not an engineer, but maybe something as simple as, maybe we can alter our work hours so that everybody's not trying to rush in here for an 8 o'clock start. And so it's just an example of simple things that we can do. But talk to the community. Have a robust conversation. Use your council members. Who knows our districts better than the people that represent the districts? Let us facilitate bringing people together to listen to each other. Instead of talking at each other, if there's more talking with each other on any issue, whether it's transit, affordable housing, taxes, incentive proposals, we're going to get a collective, better decision for the whole community.
Now, you had mentioned in the editorial board meeting, you referenced affordable housing multiple times as the top issue that you're seeing here. What do you think you and the council can do to help move that situation, that issue forward?
So we can't control where people put affordable housing, but we can sure influence it. And one of the things that we tried to do in influencing it was pass legislation over the course of this last term to offer support for the Barnes Fund, to offer incentive opportunities, to tie things that developers wanted, for example, in more height, more density, to offering a percentage of affordable housing. That's all great, but the minute we passed it, it was overturned, and the state said we didn't have the authority to do that. So we have to work with the state. We have to work with the development community. We need to work with the affordable housing advocates, NOAA, Habitat for Humanity, all those that are out there. We need to come together, and we need to find a solution so it's a win-win for everybody. Because the last thing that we need for anybody is for my children, my children's friends, and our employees, our hospitality folks, our police, our firefighters, our teachers. They shouldn't have to live outside Nashville. They should be able to benefit. Everybody should be able to benefit by the booming economy that we've got. And when people are moving to this area, Nashville's beautiful. Let everybody have an opportunity to enjoy that.
When people ask you what you enjoy most about Nashville for recreation, tourism, what are your recommendations?
There's so much. We've got the fabulous greenway system. We've got parks. We've got waterways. We've got wellness opportunities. There's so much. There's a plethora of things that we can provide.
And over in your district, I'm not sure if it's exactly in your district, you've got Cheekwood over there, and the Percy Warner Park, Edwin Warner Parks.
We've got the Warner Park system expands into Bellevue, and Cheekwood's going to be over in District 23, so it's a little bit further away, but it's still close enough that everybody can take the opportunity. It's just beautiful.
Is there anything that you haven't talked to me about that you'd like to tell viewers now about yourself? Anything that you want to relay, clarify, or just express?
I think it's important that if people want to know something about me, they need to look at my track record. And my track record is supporting everybody, and look at who's supporting me. I've got everybody from every walk of life who are avid, enthusiastic supporters and have asked me to come in and do this job because they appreciate my level head, my fair-mindedness, and the fact that I look at both sides of an issue and I don't keep myself in one extreme lane or the other. I literally run right down the middle because I like to look at things from an issues-based perspective, and I think that everybody needs to be afforded the opportunity to take advantage of everything Nashville has to offer. As a single mother raising 2 children and running my own business that initially failed back in the early 80s, that I had to learn how to, pull myself up from my bootstraps, and I was fortunate to be here because there was enough opportunity for me to reach out to people that were smart enough to teach me how to move this forward. And I pay that forward now in my community engagement and in my day job, where I'm teaching others to do what I should have known how to do back in the 80s. And so just the simple point that I'm able to, what's the word I'm looking for, address, envelop a broad faction of people from all walks of life. And I support and have the support of all those people, I think speaks volumes to where Nashville should go. We need to be talking with each other instead of at each other, and we need to not pigeonhole ourselves in one lane or the other, which I don't do.
I want to thank you very much for your time.
Thank
you.
This
is Acting Vice Mayor Sheri Weiner. She is running for office on August 2nd. There is presently early voting going on at this moment.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the voter registration deadline has already passed. But if you are a voter, please go out and vote either
Absolutely.
early or on Election Day. And best of success to you. And thank you very much.
I appreciate it.